On a single day in July 1943, nearly every Soviet tank crew on the front line faced certain death, and most never returned. Today, we're pulling back the steel curtain on the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank clash in history. You'll discover why survival was almost impossible, the brutal tactics that sealed their fate, and the rare moments where crews beat the odds in ways no history book tells you. If you were a commander at Kursk, would you order your crew to stay in a burning tank, or bail and face enemy fire in open fields? Comment your choice. It's a dilemma no training could prepare you for. Why did Kursk become a death trap unlike any other battle in World War II? The Battle of Kursk in the summer of 1943 was not just another clash between Germany and the Soviet Union. It was the largest tank battle in history, a confrontation so massive it reshaped the very nature of armored warfare. The sheer scale of the engagement was staggering. Over 6,000 tanks, tens of thousands of artillery pieces, and nearly 2 million soldiers converged on a narrow stretch of the Eastern Front. The battlefield quickly became a vast killing ground, where the air shook with the roar of engines, and the earth trembled under relentless shelling. For tank crews, maneuver was almost impossible. The fields were littered with burning wrecks, craters, and minefields that trapped advancing units. German Panzers and Soviet T-34s often fought at such close range that survival came down to seconds. With no safe retreat and supply lines constantly under threat, there was nowhere to hide, no high ground to hold, no cover from the swarms of enemy aircraft overhead. Every engagement was a brutal test of endurance, and every advance meant driving straight into withering fire. Crews knew that the moment they climbed into their steel beasts, they were stepping into an environment designed to consume men and machines alike. In Kursk, survival was not just rare, it was a stroke of pure luck. The average life expectancy of a tank crew at Kursk wasn't measured in days, it was measured in minutes once battle was joined. The instant a tank lurched forward, it was already in the enemy's sights. Intense artillery barrages pounded the ground ahead, shaking crews to their core before they even reached firing range. Dense belts of minefields slowed movement to a crawl, turning advancing tanks into easy targets. Overhead, coordinated waves of dive bombers and fighter bombers struck with surgical precision, forcing crews to fight under constant threat from the sky. Once inside this deadly web, there was no safe maneuver. Overlapping fields of anti-tank fire crisscrossed the battlefield, meaning every possible route forward was a death trap. Many tankers never got the chance to fire more than a handful of rounds before their vehicles erupted in flames, trapping them inside. At Kursk, the battlefield wasn't just dangerous, it was engineered to erase entire units in minutes. Imagine being locked inside a steel coffin. The temperature soaring past 60 degrees Celsius, sweat pouring into your eyes as the air grows heavy with the stench of fuel and burning oil. The deafening roar of the engine mixes with the relentless hammering of shells striking the armor, each impact reverberating through your bones. Every shudder, every jolt could be the final second you'll ever experience. Even without a direct hit, the shock waves alone can slam your head into the steel interior, leaving you dazed. Shrapnel from a near miss can punch through weak points in the armor, maiming or killing in an instant. And if flames breach the crew compartment, there is no escape. The heat can turn the inside of the tank into an oven, cooking its occupants alive within seconds. In Kursk, death wasn't always a sudden explosion. Sometimes it was a slow, suffocating inferno inside your own war machine. Survivors would later recall the sound of Kursk as something you could feel in your bones, a deafening, unending thunder that turned the steel hull into a drum of terror. Every shell strike rang through the armor like a sledgehammer slamming against a coffin lid. Each blow, a reminder that the next one could be the last. One Soviet gunner remembered gripping his loader's arm as their tank jolted violently from a nearby blast. In that frozen moment, he knew the next strike might seal them inside forever. Yet, without a word, the loader shoved another round into the breach, his hands moving with mechanical precision, as if routine could somehow defy death. Inside that burning cauldron of steel, there was no room for panic, only the desperate rhythm of survival. Kursk proved a brutal truth. Overconfidence in technology can be fatal. Both the Germans and the Soviets entered the battle convinced their tanks would dominate, trusting in thicker armor, bigger guns, and mechanical superiority. But armor alone was no shield against the sheer, unrelenting volume of firepower on that battlefield. Those who underestimated the vital role of infantry coordination, camouflage, and rapid maneuvering paid in blood. Tanks without eyes on the ground became blind giants, exposed to ambushes and trapped in kill zones. Commanders who treated mobility as secondary, or believed steel alone could break the enemy, condemned their crews to die inside the very machines meant to protect them. At Kursk, the lesson was written in wreckage. Technology is nothing without tactics. At Kursk, every tank was both a shield and a coffin. Its thick steel armor could shrug off small arms fire and even deflect lighter shells, giving crews a fleeting sense of safety. But that same armor became a deadly prison the moment fire found its way inside. When fuel ignited, the steel walls trapped heat like an oven, turning seconds into a death sentence. Escape often meant clambering out into open ground, straight into the enemy's crosshairs. For many, the choice was unbearable: burn alive inside their war machine, or step outside and face certain death. At Kursk, protection and doom came wrapped in the same armor plating. A Soviet historian once observed, "Kursk was not just a battle of machines, it was a furnace for men." This was no poetic flourish, but a grim reality witnessed by those who survived. Inside a tank, the air was choked with exhaust. The walls radiated suffocating heat, and every rack of ammunition was a ticking bomb. One penetrating hit could transform the crew compartment into an inferno in an instant. The enemy was only part of the terror. The greater fear was what their own steel giant could become when under fire. At Kursk, the battlefield forged not just wreckage, but the haunting memories of men who fought inside a furnace. One Soviet T-34 crew at Kursk endured the unthinkable: 11 direct hits. Each impact rang through the steel hull like a giant's hammer, denting plates, shattering bolts, and spraying hot fragments across the cramped interior. But the 12th shell was different. It punched clean through the armor, igniting fuel and ammunition in a flash of white-hot fire. With smoke blinding their eyes and flames licking at their boots, the driver slammed his shoulder into the hatch until it burst open. One by one, the 5-man crew tumbled out onto the scorched earth, only to find themselves in the middle of a minefield, under the stuttering fury of enemy machine guns. Crawling low, feeling for tripwires in the dirt, they moved inch by inch toward safety. 3 men survived that crawl, and their escape became a legend within the unit, a testament to the razor-thin line between life and death at Kursk. If this deep dive into Kursk's hidden truths shocks you, make sure to hit like and subscribe, because the second half uncovers the fatal mistakes commanders made, and how those blunders doomed thousands of crews before the first shot was even fired. German crews suffered almost as badly as the Soviets. Many Tiger and Panther tanks were knocked out before firing a shot, victims of mines, hidden anti-tank guns, and Soviet artillery. Superior armor didn't save them. It often made them stationary targets in a battlefield too choked with obstacles to maneuver effectively. One critical failure was poor coordination between infantry and armor. Without infantry to spot and neutralize threats, tanks rolled blindly into ambushes. Minefields, concealed guns, and even small anti-tank squads became lethal when armor advanced without foot soldiers clearing the way. At Kursk, this mistake cost hundreds of tanks in mere hours. Picture a battlefield so shrouded in smoke that crews couldn't see beyond their own barrels. Radio communication was often jammed or chaotic, forcing commanders to guess where the enemy was. Tanks advanced into the unknown, and many never returned, their hulks still smoldering hours later in the summer sun. High-velocity shells at Kursk could punch through armor like paper, and when they did, they often struck ammunition stores, causing instant explosions. Survivors say tanks hit this way didn't just burn. They vanished in fireballs so violent that nothing was left but scorched steel and the memory of the crew. The slaughter at Kursk forced militaries to rethink tank design. Modern armor focuses as much on crew survivability as on firepower, with features like blowout panels, automatic fire suppression, and better hatch designs. Kursk's legacy is in every modern tank, proof that protecting soldiers matters as much as destroying the enemy. A German tanker later wrote, "We were lions sent into a slaughterhouse." He described watching his unit reduced from dozens of tanks to a handful in hours, the survivors too shaken to speak. His words became a haunting testament to the futility of sheer bravery against overwhelming firepower. One Soviet commander saved dozens of crews by using decoy tanks made from wood and canvas, drawing German fire while the real armor lay in wait. When the enemy committed their assault, the hidden tanks opened fire from prepared positions, cutting the attackers to pieces and buying precious hours of survival. Kursk teaches that survival in extreme conflict is a blend of preparation, adaptability, and sheer luck. Even the best planning can collapse under battlefield chaos, which is why militaries today drill endlessly in flexible tactics. Rigid plans and untested strategies are as dangerous as enemy fire. Kursk proved that even the mightiest armor is powerless against the raw scale of war's destruction. Behind every wrecked tank was a crew that once believed in their machine. The battle's real legacy is not the clash of steel, but the staggering human cost it claimed.